As 2017 draws to a close, we reflect on some of the high-profile appeal cases heard by the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. They include the state appeal against the sentence of Oscar Pistorius' murder charge, as well as President Jacob Zuma's spy tapes appeal, among others.
President Jacob Zuma's spy tapes appeal was one of the most high-profile cases to be heard by judges at the Supreme Court of Appeal. In October, the highest appeal court in the country dismissed with cost the president's appeal in his long-running battle to avoid prosecution for fraud and corruption. This comes after the High Court in Pretoria found that the NPA should have not withdrawn the 783 charges against President Zuma. The charges were based on the spy tapes revelation by the then Scorpions and NPA bosses. Zuma's representatives argued in court that charges raised by the DA against the president was shocking and a show of desperation.
One of the issues I said was about the lawfulness of the tapes, so they looked around and they found this lawful source of the tapes.
The Democratic Alliance says a move to find President Zuma innocent was irrational. DA leader Helen Zille says nobody is above the law and even the president needs to be held accountable for his actions.
My Democrats, this is one of the most important days in the history of our democracy because we stand before the Supreme Court of Appeal. And the Supreme Court of Appeal has said today, we are all equal before the law. None of us is above the law. And if anybody is suspected of a crime and there is a case to be made against that person must have his day in court, whether that person is the president or a pauper.
In September, the SCA surprised all by overturning Thandi Maqubela's murder conviction. She was jailed for her husband, acting Judge Patrick Maqubela's murder. He was found dead at a Bantry Bay apartment in 2009. In March 2015, the Western Cape High Court sentenced Thandi Maqubela to 18 years imprisonment for the murder of her husband, forging his will and then fraudulently trying to pass it off as an authentic document. Although prosecutors believe he was suffocated, his cause of death was never conclusively proven. Maqubela's legal representatives argued that the deceased may have died of natural causes.
My argument has been that the medical evidence does not establish or exclude an unnatural cause, and against that, my argument is you must then view all the mendacious conduct of the appellant.
Convicted Paralympian Oscar Pistorius' murder trial was declared as the newsmaker of the year for 2015. Pistorius fatally shot his girlfriend, model Riva Steenkamp, on Valentine's Day in 2013 in his Pretoria home. He claimed he had mistaken Steenkamp for an intruder hiding in the bathroom. He was arrested and charged with murder. The SCA had increased his sentence to 13 years from 6 years in prison for the murder of Steenkamp following NPA's appeal.
On behalf of the family, they want to say that they believe in the justice system and they support the state and the law must run its course.
We have to argue that there are prospects of success when we get to the merits of the matter. We've always indicated that murder carries a minimum of 15 years. As much as we understand that 15 years is not cast in stone, judges have got a discretion when compelling and substantial circumstances exist. Judgment was reserved in Winnie Madikizela Mandela's Qunu home appeal matter. Mandela's ex-wife Winnie approached the SCA to overturn a 2016 decision made by the Eastern Cape High Court in Mthatha. The High Court dismissed her application to acquire Mandela's home in Qunu. Madikizela Mandela believes that the Minister of Land Affairs decision in November 1997, in which the land was donated to former president, should be set aside. She claims that the property was built on land allocated to her in 1989.
In November, Justice Minister Michael Masuta denied Chris Hani's killer, Janusz Walu's parole. He said parole was not advisable at this stage. The Polish immigrant and extreme anti-communist and right-wing politician Clive de Lewis were sentenced to death for the murder of Hani outside his home in Boksburg on April the 10th in 1993. Walush fired the fatal shot and W. Lewis provided the gun. The sentence were reduced to life. W. Lewis was granted medical parole on May 15, 2015 after being diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. The SCA overturned the High Court's decision in Pretoria granting Walu's parole. This was after Masuta appealed the ruling.
Janse van Nieuwhout had indicated at the time that the family's concerns does not matter and that Ms. Hani must move on after 23 years or so since the passing on of her husband, and we felt it was extremely insensitive. And today we have been vindicated by the court to the extent that the minister himself should have considered that position of the family.
Masuta turned down Walu's application for parole in April 2015. Thabiso Kgarebe in Bloemfontein.